السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله على إحسانه والشكر له على تفضله وامتنانه، ولا إله إلا الله تعظيما لشأنه، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله داعي إلى رضوانه وعلى آله وأصحابه وإخوانه. أما بعد. إخواني في الله, we are continuing with our lecture series regarding the signs of the Day of Judgment. We are at sign number 52 of the minor signs of the Day of Judgment. The Muslims shall conquer the city of Constantinople, the city of Constantinople for the second time. They shall conquer the city of Istanbul. This is sign number 52 from the signs of the Day of Judgment. Before we take this sign, Khalifillah, let us look back at how the Muslims came to conquer this city that is currently known as Istanbul, or the city of Islam. Ikhwani fillah, we mentioned in the previous lectures Genghis Khan and the Mongolians, and how they attacked the Dawla al-Khwarizmiyah, and they massacred millions and millions of Muslims. Millions of Muslims lost their lives in Bukhara, in Samarkand, in Khwarizm. Millions of people. At this same time, when Genghis Khan was massacring Muslims in the year 617 of the Hijri calendar, something interesting was happening. وَيَمْكُرُونَ وَيَمْكُرُ اللَّهِ. They plan and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala plans. In the year 617 of the Hijri calendar, as we mentioned in the previous class, that is the worst year ever in the history of the Muslims. We lost millions and millions of Muslims. They were massacred by this shaitan, this mal'oon Genghis Khan. He massacred many Muslims. So a tribe from the Muslims that was living in northern Iraq, in a place called Kurdistan, they decided, these Mongolians are killing Muslims everywhere, let us run for our lives. And it began a history that will last for 600 years, a glorious history that is a part of our Islamic history. So this tribe is known as the Kai tribe, the year 617 of the Hijri calendar, led by a man called Suleiman Shah. He runs from Kurdistan to a place in Turkey called Anatolia. So he rules that tribe from the year 617 of the Hijri calendar to the year 628 of the Hijri calendar. One day, as they're about to settle in a place in Anadol, they discover a lot of noises going on around. So Sulman Shah sends his son Ertugrul, go see what is happening. And Ertugrul, with his army of about 400 soldiers, he sees the Muslims are fighting the Nasara, they're fighting the Byzantines. There's a great war happening between the Muslims from the Seljuk Empire versus the Nasara from the Byzantines. So Ertugrul says, these are my brothers. Haula ikhwani. These are my brothers, I have to support them. So he descends with an army of about 400 soldiers, and he fights against the Nasara, Muslims versus Nasara. He helps the Muslims so much, and they defeat the enemies of Islam. So after this, the Seljuk Emperor is very impressed with Ertugrul and his family, the Kai tribe. And they give a land in Anadol. They said, this land is the westernmost point against Europe. You are the Murabitun. You are the ones protecting the borders of Islam. I've given you this land that borders Europe, that is in Anatolia. You are the barrier between us and the Crusaders. You are the ones who are protecting the lands of Islam. So Ertugrul, the son of Suleiman Shah, he became the leader of this tribe of Kai. From the year 628 of the Hijri calendar, after his father Suleiman Shah died in the Euphrates River as he was crossing, he drowned. So from the year 628, he leads the tribe. He marries a woman called Halima. Most of you know this because you watch the Ertugrul series. But there's a lot of falsehood on the Ertugrul series. He marries a lady called Halima. In the year 656 of the Hijri calendar, and the 8th of Safar, one of the worst events happens in Islamic history to the Muslims. The capital city of the Muslims, the greatest city on earth, the city of Baghdad, is captured by the Mongolians, by Hulagu Khan, the grandson of Genghis Khan. This mal'oon, la'natullah alayh, in 40 days, he massacres 2 million people, amongst them scholars, amongst them fuqaha, amongst them salihin, and amongst them the Khalifa of the Muslims, al-Mu'tasim billah. As these events are going on, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing istibdal. He's bringing a different group of people that will give izzah to this deen, will give nasr to this deen. The people of Baghdad, the people of Iraq, they failed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At the same time, 8th Safar of the year 656 of the Hijri calendar, a young boy is born. The name is Uthman, the son of Ertugrul, the son of Uthman of Sulaiman Shah. Born on the same day that Baghdad fell, on 8th of Safar, the year 656 of the Hijri calendar. So Ertugrul continues leading the land until he passes away in the year 699. Before he dies, he gives his son, you are the new leader of the Muslims, Uthman the first. This man is known in history as Uthman the first Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. You've heard of the Ottoman Empire that ruled over many of the lands of the Muslims for 600 years plus until it fell under the hands of the betrayer Kemal Atatürk la'natullah alayh after World War I. So Uthman the first, the son of Ertugrul, the son of Sulaiman Shah, took over from the year 686 of the Hijri calendar, and he led the Muslims until the year 726. 686 to the year 726, he was the leader of the Muslims. Ikhwani fillah, this man rahimahullah, he continued the blessed way of his father, of fighting fi sabilillah, spreading the deen of Allah to lands that have never seen Islam. If you're aware with Islamic history, ikhwan fillah, in this century, we lost many of the lands in Andalus. As we were losing in this side of the west in Andalus, we lost Qurtuba, the capital city of the Muslims. We lost it in the year 633 of the Hijri calendar. We lost Jayan, we lost so many of the lands of the Muslims, Valencia, we lost all these lands in Andalus. At the same time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is bringing another empire of Muslims towards the east, towards the lands of Turkey, towards the lands of Anadolu. So this man, rahimahullah, Uthman, the son of Ertugrul, he starts the new empire. The Salajika, they fall. The Seljuk empire that given them land, it falls under the Mongolians. So this man, rahimahullah, he starts the jihad fi sabilillah and spreading the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal until he captures a number of areas in Turkey, and more particularly before his death, he captures the famous city of Bursa. He captures the city of Bursa in the year 716 of the Hijri calendar. He captures the city of Bursa. Uthman rahimahullah, he passes away. He gives the rule to his son after him, who's called Hurkhan. He's called Urkhan, the son of Uthman. But before he died, he gave, subhanallah, one of the greatest advices that a father can give a child. One of the greatest advices the king can give the prince. He says, Ya bunayya, O my son, إياك أن تشتغل بشيء لم يأمر به الله رب العالمين. Woe upon you, never spend time doing anything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not commanded you to do. And he says, وَإِذَا وَجَحْتَكَ فِي الْحُكْمِ مُعْضِلًا فَاتَّخِذْ مِنْ مَشُورَةِ عُلَمَاءِ الدِّينِ. If anything disturbs you with affairs of the deen, go back to the scholars. Always put the scholars of Islam. And he says, وَأَنْعِمْ عَلَى الْجُنُودِ. Be very kind to your army. وَلَا يَغُرَّنَّكَ الشَّيْطَانُ بِجُنْدِكَ وَبِمَالِكَ. Shaitan should never deceive you with regards to your army and with regards to your property. And he says, إِنَّكَ تَعْلَمْ أَنَّ غَايَتَنَا هِيَ إِرْضَاءُ اللَّهِ رَبَّ الْعَالَمِينَ. You know that our purpose in this life is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وإن بالجهاد يعم النور ديننا كل الآفاق فاتحد. Always seek the pleasure of Allah in everything that you do. He gives this advice to his son and he passes rahimahullah. His son Urkhan, the son of Uthman, becomes the second sultan of the Muslims, and he forms and he arranges the army. He says the army of the Muslims will no longer be volunteers. The army of the Muslims has to be a permanent army, and they shall be given a fifth of the war booty, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Al-Anfal. So they shall be given 20% of everything that we gather in the field. 80% shall go to the treasury of the Muslims. Also, there are many children from our enemies. We killed many of our enemies and they left children, and these children are Muslims. We shall give these children a tarbiyah al-Islamiyah. We shall teach them the true Islam from when they are children. So they were taught at-Tawheed, they were taught Hadith, they were taught Quran when they were children. Also they were taught how to wrestle, how to do horse riding, how to swim, how to fight with different types of weapons. Also they were taught the languages of the Muslims at the time of that area, which was 3 languages in particular: Arabic, Turkish and Persian. So these boys were brought up in a state of Iman. They were brought up in a good tarbiyah, and they became the Junud of Islam. They became the armies of Islam, and they were known as the Ikshariyun. In English, they were known as the Janissaries. So this formed a very important part of the Turkish army or the Ottoman army. So Orkhan, the son of Uthman, he led the Muslims until the year, today I'm going to confuse dates, 686 to 726, until the year 726. He passed away, rahimahullah, Orkhan. Astaghfirullah. Uthman is the one who died in 726. So from 726 to 761, the leader of the Muslims was Orkhan, the son of Uthman, the son of Sulaiman, Ertugrul, the son of Sulaiman Shah. So the year 761 came. Before Orkhan died, he had an elder son. His son was called Sulaiman Basha. This man was a great leader. He had conquered a place called Galilopo. Galilopo, I think that's the correct pronunciation. So he conquered parts of Europe through this son called Sulaiman Shah. And the people of Europe were very afraid of this kingdom that was coming up. But one day the son of Orkhan, Khalil, was kidnapped by the army of Italians from Genoa, and he had to pay a lot of ransom to save his son. And during this period, Orkhan also got another musibah. He lost his firstborn son. That was his crown prince, Sulaiman Basha. This was about 5 years before his death. So he was wondering, who do I give the rule of the Muslims after me? So he gave it to his other son called Murad the First. So this is the third Sultan of the Muslims we're taking. Sorry, we're summarizing history of about 200 years in about 1 hour. So Murad the First took over the kingdom from his father. His father, the kingdom at the time was only 95,000 square kilometers. The size of the land that the Ottomans were ruling at was 95,000 kilometers squared. So he started expanding, rahimahullah. He started expanding in Anatolia, and started expanding in Europe, in the lands of Hungary, in the lands of Bulgaria, in the lands of Serbia. He started expanding the kingdom, rahimahullah. Then the Europeans, they decided this guy is a menace. We have to declare war on him, and we have to prepare the greatest army, or one of the biggest armies we have ever gathered in Europe. So they gathered a great army, and they met in a place called Kosovo. In the Battle of Kosovo in the year 791 of the Hijri calendar. They met in the Battle of Kosovo in the year 791. A great army from Europe versus this army led by Murad, the son of Orkhan, the son of Uthman. A great battle ensued, and alhamdulillah, victory was for the Muslims. The Muslims were victorious. And as the leader of the Muslims, Murad al-Awwal, he goes to the battlefield checking the injured Muslims, the Muslims who are dead. He looks at the enemies, everything he gets. One of the soldiers of the Kuffar, he had pretended to be dead. So when he saw the leader of the Muslims, Murad, coming in the battlefield, he stood up and rushed towards him. So the bodyguards, they caught him. So he says, I do not want to do anything except to accept Islam. Let me kiss the leader's hand. So I accept Islam in his hand. So he's told, okay, go and kiss the hand of the leader. As he goes there, he removes a knife or a dagger that was poisoned. He had hidden it, and he assassinates the leader of the Muslims at the time, Murad the First, rahimahullah. So he passed away, and the leadership of the Muslims was given to one of the greatest leaders in Islamic history, a man known as Bayazid as-Sa'iqah, Bayazid Yildirim, who led the Muslims in the lands of Anadol from the year 791 of the Hijri calendar to the year 805 of the Hijri calendar. Afwan, we are summarizing a lot of history of 200 years plus in a few minutes. Ikhwani fillah, this man, Bayazid as-Sa'iqah, the thunderbolt, was one of the greatest commanders that the Muslims have ever produced. We have had great commanders, and this one is he's one in the list of the top 50 at least, or the top 30 of the greatest Muslim commanders. At the time, the Ottomans, they had a great inspiration. The lands they were fighting in was the land of the Eastern Roman Empire. the Byzantines. And the capital city of the Byzantines was the city of Constantinople, the city of Constantinople. And these Rome Ottomans, they followed the hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, where the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he says, لَتَفْتَحُنَّ قُسْطَنْطِنِيَّةً فَلَنِعْمَ الْأَمِيرُ أَمِيرُهَا وَلَنِعْمَ الْجَيْشُ ذَلِكَ الْجَيْشُ. The hadith was authenticated and declared sahih by some scholars, other scholars declared it da'if. Imam al-Dhahabi and al-Hakim, they declared this hadith as sahih. And this is one of the motivations of these Ottomans. The Prophet ﷺ, it said in this hadith that he says, O Muslims, you shall conquer the city of Constantinople. فَلَنِعْمَ الْأَمِيرُ أَمِيرُهَا. And a blessed leader is the leader who will conquer this city. وَلَنِعْمَ الْجَيْشُ ذَلِكَ الْجَيْشُ. And a blessed army is that army that will conquer this city of Constantinople. So from the time of the Sahaba, they understood, it was popular amongst them, that there was a virtue, there was a fadl in conquering the first conquest, not the second conquest. There was a fadl in the first conquest of Constantinople. So you have the Sahabi, Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, he joins the army of Yazid ibn Muawiyah, and he comes and besieges the city of Constantinople for many years, for a long time, until radiallahu anhu, he dies at the wall of Constantinople, and his grave is known till up to now. Abu Ayyub al-Ansari radiallahu anhu. The army is not successful. Later on, Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik, the Khalifa of the Muslims, the Khalifa before Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, he also sends an army to try conquering the city of Constantinople. Not successful. The Muslims, on this other hand, Musa ibn Nusayr, Tariq ibn Ziyad, they have conquered North Africa, they have conquered Andalus, they have conquered part of France, and they say, let us conquer Istanbul or Constantinople from the long way around. Let us go through France, Germany, Hungary, all this way we conquer Constantinople from the west. So Muslims were very aware that there was a virtue, there was a benefit in conquering the capital city of the Christians at the time, the city of Constantinople, the capital city that had the attribute of being called, if there was a city that should be a capital city of the world, it is the city of Constantinople. This is a city between two continents, Asia and Europe. This is a city between how many oceans? It is a difficult city, but the Muslims were very aware that there is a virtue and a benefit of the first conquest, and this is how the early Muslims understood it. So Urkhan failed. He had tried also conquering this city by couldn't. Now we've talked Murad al-Awwal was assassinated in the Battle of Kosovo. The new leader of the Muslims is Bayazid al-Sa'iqa, Bayazid Yildirim, rahimahullah. Once this man takes over charge, they capture the city of Adarna, that becomes the capital city of the Ottomans, or this was captured earlier on. They captured the city of Nicaea. They've captured most of the Turkish area. And then they enter Europe. They capture Bulgaria, Romania, Serbia, Hungary. They capture all these places until they reach Albania. When the Europeans saw this, the Pope Boniface at the time, he decides to form the largest army ever seen in Europe to fight this man. Europeans were so scared with this man. You mention the name Bayezid and it creates fear in the hearts of the Europeans. This is Islamic history we're going through. So they formed a great army to meet the Muslims in a river called the Danube River. An army of Europeans from England, from Scotland, from Germany, from France, from Italy, from Luxembourg, from Switzerland, from Genoa, from Hungary, from Serbia, from Bulgaria, how many countries? From Romania. Tens of countries were participating versus the Muslims. An army of 100,000 plus from the Crusaders versus the Muslims, and they met in the Battle of Nicopolis. Alhamdulillah, the Muslims defeated them thoroughly in one of the greatest victories in Islamic history. And most of the army of Crusaders were massacred. Very few escaped and very, very few were captured. Amongst the people who were captured was the leader of the French. He says, Wallahi, I shall not attack you Muslims again. I will keep my word. Bayezid tells him, rahimahullah, the izzah and the power he has, he says to him, Wallahi, don't make any promise, please. I want you to fight me again. That's the purpose I was created for. I want you to break your promise and come fight me again. I will wait for you. So don't make any promises. I'm going to release you with ransom. Come back and fight me again, and fight me again, and fight me again. I shall not rest easy until I conquer Rome. Until I conquer Rome, the capital of Italy, I shall not rest easy. So the people of Europe were shaking. After he's defeated them in Nicopolis, he rushes back and besieges the city of Constantinople. And all the Europeans, they're sure that this city of Constantinople will fall at the hands of Bayezid al-Sa'iqa in the year 800 of the Hijri calendar. So he besieges it. And as about just a few days remaining for him to conquer the city of Constantinople, a great calamity befalls him. A great calamity befalls the leader of the Muslims, Bayezid al-Sa'iqa, and he is unable to capture the city of Constantinople. The city of Constantinople will be captured later on by his grandson, Muhammad al-Fatih, the son of Murad II, the son of Muhammad, the son of Bayezid. What is this great calamity that happened to the Muslim leader, Bayezid al-Sa'iqa, that prevented him to capture the city of Constantinople? There was a few days remaining for it to be conquered. This is what we shall look at in the lecture tomorrow. Wallahu alam. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.